have many bright spots that I can point to on a systems level, if you will. And I would say that we're just at the front end of our journey, and that they are only going to get brighter with time because we're learning. And so all of that to say, I believe our monthly leadership meetings and the structure that we have around building the capacity of leaders is a bright spot. Leading our organization isn't just the job of certificated leaders. And so I also think that that is unique to us. I'm sure it happens other places. I've worked in multiple districts. I've not seen it in other districts, but we pour into all leaders. And so monthly, it's our certificated leaders as well as our classified leaders. And it's not just our directors on the classified side. It's also entry-level leaders on the classified side who also attend our leadership meetings. And the reason for that is leadership matters. You can't do the work if you don't have the ability to influence the day-to-day. And leaders are charged to influence the work. And so that for me is a bright spot. And it also is a message of we value you. It is very typical to see that our certificated staff and leaders, they typically receive more, if you will, in terms of professional development and those types of opportunities. And what we are saying is that you are all valuable. You all contribute to the work where it is that you are in the work. And so how do we give you the skills and resources that you need to be at your very best? Because everyone matters. And I believe that through and through. We could not do what we do without our classified leaders. And so that's a bright spot for us. I also know that we have worked hard in terms of what onboarding looks like, and that leaders come and go. And so it's great that you've developed people over the course of the year, but now what happens when they leave and new people come, right? People are always jumping in the middle of the storyline. So how do we embrace new leaders as they come onto the team so that they can get to work, if you will, right away without feeling that sense of loss or confusion? And so we have some really robust structures around onboarding new management into our district. And that too, for me, is a bright spot. Our work around with rounding is a bright spot. Again, this is year one for us related to that work, but we are very much of the mindset, go big or go home. And so the expectation was that all leaders in the organization are engaged in rounding with their teams. And we are working to build accountability into the system, and not accountability in a punitive way, but accountability in the way that we can say, you can count on me. I'm going to be part of the work. I'm going to be part of the solution. And so we have, again, our data to be very transparent. Everyone can see everyone's data related to rounding and the sharing of gratitude, and that is a bright spot for us. We've learned a lot about it this year, and we will be better next year as a result of that. What we will be doing different next year is we have decided to use the Studer app for rounding, because some of the feedback that we've received from our leaders, self-included, is that when you're having to keep track and now go into a separate document to log that and now go somewhere else to email gratitude, it's just a lot of steps. And we don't want the work of rounding to be an add-on. We want it to be the work. And so for it to be the work, you have to make it accessible and easy and not overburdensome as it relates to time. And so we had a group of leaders pilot the app for rounding, and the feedback was off the charts good. And so that's a bright spot. We're going to scale that. And now the data will be, I believe, more accurate and reliable to really drive change. So that to me is definitely a bright spot. We also implemented our experience surveys this year. that was a first for us. Again, we learned a lot. We will be brighter next year. And what I mean by that is there's sophistication that needs to be developed in how you now leverage the information and the data that you've received. And so good came from it this year, but again, like we're the awkward, adolescent, if you will, and trying to figure it out, and we will be better next year. So those are some bright spots and things that I'm just really excited about. Our scorecard is an amazing bright spot. We are data rich, and I would say that we're poor as it relates to the ability to use that data to do something. And so we were able this year to develop a scorecard on the measures that matter most to us. And we had to get really concise. It's like, what are the largest pain points? What are the biggest things that we should be going after that are going to make big change, right? What are those levers that we should be pulling? And then we developed a scorecard around that. And so we now have an organizational scorecard that is reflective of 4 key measures that we're going after. And that is real-time data. And so every day we can look at it to say, are we on target for where we want to be by the end of the year? Are we green? Are we slightly off target? Are we yellow? Have we hit a wall? Are we red? And so we have now some really robust routines built around the scorecard so that we can use data to drive change. And we've become much more sophisticated with that over the course of this year. We have also started testing scorecards for our school sites, and theirs look like ours. We haven't yet released that, if you will, because we don't want to overwhelm people and overwhelm the system. We have spoke about it repetitively. We've given them a peek in, if you will, so that they know what it is, they know that it's coming, and knowing that next year they will also be working with a scorecard with related action plans. So if you have data that you want to improve, you should have a plan for improvement, and your action plan is a part of that. So I'm really excited about that work. We also have something here in our district that we call squad leaders. And the work of a principal is critical to the work of what happens for kids at school sites and for the staff that serve them. And it is true that cabinet is too far removed from the daily work to truly provide the scaffolds that are needed for our site-based leaders. And so leadership meetings are part of our strategy, but the squad model is also part of our strategy in caring for our leaders and developing them. And so we have several directors in educational services, and those directors are what we call squad leaders. It's somewhat of a PLC for principals. And so each squad leader has 5 to 7 principals that they work closely with as a team. And so as we've developed our scorecard, we've begun to bring in our squad leaders to have data conversations with cabinet about the data, and then what does that mean for them as it relates to their leadership in supporting individual principals. And so that's a really important part of our system here in our district that we're also leveraging around the scorecard and developing leaders to become proficient at using data, as well as then the action planning process. This past year, cabinet leaders go first. This past year, cabinet piloted action plans and the scorecard. And then about 2 months ago, we enlisted about 6 principals and a few classified directors to test scorecards. It works for us, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work for them because their context is different. Again, our squad leaders were involved in that process, and so then next year we'll be scaling out action plans and scorecards to all leaders. The initial rollout started with testing with an additional group of leaders, and cabinet worked closely with our squad leaders or the directors who help support principals directly to scaffold that learning. And so we did it in tandem with our squad leaders, but again, like who's closest to the work, Our squad leaders are closest to principals, so as compared to cabinet, so it's more appropriate for them to be working through the grapple, if you will, of what's working, what's not. And then we set up ongoing feedback loops with our squad leaders and with our classified leaders and our principals who are now testing at larger scale. So it's kind of been this accordion, go play with it, come back, tell us what worked, what didn't, let's revise, go back, and we've just been going back and forth for the last couple of months. Cabinet is really engaged in the work. That is a must-do for me as superintendent. This isn't work for other people to do, it is work that we do. And so Cabinet will remain involved, and the way that we will do that is through our monthly leadership meetings, and that we will be providing the big picture lens, if you will, and the big picture type of professional development to come alongside people, to introduce new ideas along with depth in the learning. And then the application piece comes from the squad leaders. So Cabinet gives the more theoretical in the leadership meetings, and then what does that mean? What does that look like in practice? That's for the work of the squad leaders to get into the work with their respective principals. And then again, it's this back and forth. It's never a one-way, it's not a one-way dialogue or a one-way transaction, because we have to also be learning from their experiences so that we can continue to refine and get better at our work. It's not about the tool, it's about the process, and it's about outcomes. And so if you're really going to get good at the process, and if you're going to be great at getting outcomes that are sustainable and predictable, then it can't be a one-way dialogue, right? It has to be two-way, because context is consistently changing. And so how do we stay relevant, and how do we know that we're meeting the needs of today and that they weren't the needs from 3 years ago?